I'm going to talk about something very controversial, and it's about this unnatural law of age. That is, if we all age the same way consistently, as if 18 is something, 15 in the Latin culture is the quinceanera, right? Uh, so I read an article, the person is this guy that, well, in my opinion, he's a little bit old, but the girls I grew up with, a lot of them developed very early, third grade, fourth grade. By the time they're 13, they have a full, like, woman's body. They went through puberty, like, it hit them like a fucking rock. They were girls that just. And so I studied them. And some of them, you can just ask them, can I see you naked and stuff like that. And I never took advantage of that particularly, unless they wanted to. They can make conscious choices. But society has this unnatural, like, concept that you're not a woman until you're 18. It's always kind of confused me. I get that it's about developing the brain, but the innocence in our society comes from breeding young women. You have an innocent young mother, and it's not about, well, there's an issue too where they, and I'm talking like women that had hips and curves that could produce children without killing them. Like these girls back home, like they 12, 13, some of them, you know, not all of them, but I mean, they're women. They're not like like my ex, like Christy. She was still developing breasts at 20 years old. But we're talking like fourth grade, which is 11, 10, 11, full fucking body. It just like hit, it just like, they explode over the summer. And part of that's probably pheromones. I hit puberty in the fourth grade. I was very developed early on. Everybody's circumstantial, but we have this law that where we pretend like 18 makes sense. And the whole law is to try to make society and our population last longer so that our lifespan is slower developmentally. And I'm all for that. I completely agree with it. I worked at the Elkhorn, and there was this 12-year-old girl, and she was fucking some like 34-year-old guy that worked there. Very sweet girl, nice and kind, but she was making her choices. She could have run away and done whatever the hell she wanted to do. And that guy disappeared. Pretty sure he was murdered. He's probably in the mountains somewhere. Uh, and like another girl, like I look back, and she has the most beautiful eyes. But she was the daughter of the manager at that time. And like I don't indulge or take advantage of young women unless it's real. So there's like a concept of prodigies, right? That if you can play a violin at the level of somebody who has worked their entire life to play it well, but you can do it young, you have the concept of the mind. Thus, women form this, early on. And so I've studied them my entire life. The ones I grew up with, like when I was in the fourth grade, there was this third grade girl, and she was being like abused by her brother though. So I would beat the shit out of him every single day on the school bus. And he was a ninth grader, and I'm in fourth grade, and I'm beating the fucking hell out of him. He couldn't fight me. But I got him to stop touching her. And she didn't want that. But what she wanted, she would just take her clothes off. And so I'm a fourth grader, she's a third grader. She would just take her clothes off. And, but you couldn't touch her. She didn't want you to touch her. She just liked being naked and natural and innocent. It was awesome. It was beautiful. It's a fond memory. And so, I'm losing my train of thought, but the whole point is that sometimes young girls can make conscious choices. This whole unnatural law that we're trying to create can actually lead to a collapse in our society. And I know this is very controversial because everybody's a fucking idiot. Can't even handle monetizing their own fucking gas usage. But these young women, like, there was this she's so beautiful now. She aged fine as well, just so well. And she developed too, But I never dated younger girls in high school, and she literally tried to throw herself at me. And I denied her because I knew it wasn't real. Like, it's chemical manipulation of the mind and the body, and my pheromones and stuff, and her hormones. And I've thought about this for so long. Because she's, I think, 3 grades below me. I saw so many older guys take advantage of young girls and just vanish. They just disappeared. And these girls fell into deep depression. And this woman, she's she's a quality mother. She's still just as sharp as ever, and she's just as fun as ever. Like, and so my point is that every time somebody develops, they're all circumstantial. There are violin prodigies playing for groups of people. There are girls that develop that are not equivalent to this concept of age. You gotta weed out those variables. We don't want to make victims, but young girls, a lot of them get depressed because they're not desired too. And they can't experience their body at its peak moment, when it's like eating a banana when it finally turns yellow. That's the best way to put it. I always liked bananas when they're slightly green. I liked that flavor. I can't taste. I hate them when they turn yellow and they turn a little bit dark. But that's just. I'm actually talking about bananas. That's not a euphemism. But, or a metaphor, that girls, women, ladies, whatever, I used to use a distinct tier structure. Girls, ladies, women. But I, you don't want to make victims. That's the key trait. They should always have fine memories. And when they're being denied because they develop early, you can cause a lot of emotional trauma to them. You you aren't raising an innocent. So you think that you're in control of the innocence. But their body is telling them something completely different. And they then suffer. And as somebody who has spent 12 years alone, I understand what it means to suffer emotionally. That it's nobody's responsibility that I say I love you. That is not a responsibility of you. I know that for a fact. A deeply hardened fact. However, you know, boobs are boobs. And that kind of defines a woman's development. If they aren't still growing, she's a full grown woman. That's just the way it fucking is. That is biology, okay? You gotta learn to accept that. It does not matter if you have a number behind your age. That is a woman, and she has the right to decide to do what she wants with her body. And that's how we were. And we made sure that they weren't being taken advantage of or abused. And we always questioned them back home to make sure that she was choosing to be with so and so who might be, I don't know, 8 years older, 10 years older, or this and that, or experience, or desiring just to experience her youth, her body. As I said, about the metaphor of prodigies, that some women develop so quickly that we as a society are actually making them suffer in the long term instead of them enjoying their youth. And like they don't know what the fuck's going on. One day they're cute, they're young, they're just natural, and then all of a sudden hormones just like strike them. They don't know what the fuck's going on. Nobody does. But society says that there is a specific number. And this is what is okay. It's ridiculous. Disgusts me. Like, I'm not saying that I want to be. I've been alone for 12 years. Like I took my vows, and I've burned them into my flesh over and over again. I don't touch people. I don't like being touched. I can hate being touched. These are just things that people can't handle understanding. Because when you have a daughter, I've always wanted a daughter so that I could raise a proper woman that'd beat the shit out of you so that you can know that she loves you. That people think they own their children. They use the word my. And my means ownership. That is my child. I own them. It's practical, it's practically slavery. And everybody's so naive to this, that young minds can feel desire and lust. Like, I remember my first boner. I actually do, okay? We're watching this movie, and there's a kissing scene. And my mother and my father are sitting in their, like, chairs, and they had this little special chair for me. I'm fucking, like, 3 or 4 years old. And I feel, the stimulus. And I look back, and it's like, it would not have been so bad were I have to have ignored all these societal standards. Like, society just wants to pretend that you're a victim, and you're really not. Often, what happens is that you're being taught that you're a victim, so you have to think around that to create the truth of what you actually desire. And then you have these other fucking people who are like, I'm a vigilante, I'm Batman. You like boobs? Well, boobs have an expiration date. You have to be a certain age. And it's all confounding. Like, not every person under 18 is a fucking victim. Okay? You gotta get over that. You gotta be more complex. You gotta be more honest. You gotta rationalize. Otherwise, you will create victims through this perception of justice. That controversial way of thinking is not held to a high standard of consideration. People do not like talking about this. It's because we have been so trained and manipulated by law to believe that a number defines us all. It's ridiculous. If the number actually functioned, every single woman would have the same breast size. That's how you equate it. Like, hip size, waist size. We would all wear the same pants. The number has no value. Otherwise, we degrade what it means to be a human being. She's laughing, she's enjoying it, she remembers it fondly. Whether or not it's this whole concept of, oh my god, I'm breaking the rules. This is so enticing. That's a whole other argument. But Like, what a woman is hard to define, right? Every man struggles to define a woman. There's some that are like, I grew up and now I have regrets. But at that time, did you regret what you were doing? Or were you being taught that you thought now that you should have regretted it? And that happens so much too. People are being taught that they are victims. It's similar to skateboarding in the regards that, can I come back and say, hey, I broke my ankle when I was 13 and limped up and down and nobody gave a shit? Should you be to blame for that? I chose to limp up and down 3 stories with a broken ankle for 3 months straight. I had 4 minutes to get to class. I made that choice. I'm 13 to suffer that much. And I'm not joking when I say this. That's a real story. So, what do you consider about that? Am I a man? Am I a boy? And then you consider women. You hold them in your hands, right? They're objects of conception. Yeah, I think you're all fucking stupid. I think you're all fucking morons. Honestly, I'm disappointed in humanity.